Welcome to JK Tells a Story, where real-life dramas unfold. Sit back and enjoy today's tale. So tonight my wife is spending the night with her boyfriend. Yeah, boyfriend. How do I know she has a boyfriend? Well, she told me so herself. I couldn't have been more wrong in saying that. Actually, she told me this after I saw some text messages between her and her boyfriend on her cell phone. She forgot to turn it off. The kids were screaming and calling for her, and she put the phone on the kitchen counter to attend to them. I was walking by and noticed she was texting someone she only called B. It seemed odd, so I picked up the phone and looked at a few messages between my wife Rebecca and B. I didn't immediately realize that my life and my family's life was destined to change. That was 18 months ago, here in our Tampa suburb home. Those were difficult months. A lot has changed in those months. A lot of things. So tonight she was dressed very nicely and took a small overnight bag with her as she left the house. She said good night to the kids and asked them to be good for me, then looked in my direction. She tried to kiss me, but I deflected, turning my head so that she only got my cheek. I was still having a hard time accepting that she had gone on a date with another man and cheated on me. What kind of loser am I? It's the 21st century, I know, and we should be long past these archaic notions of fidelity. But call me old-fashioned. After coming to terms with the fact that Rebecca was going to date another man, to sleep with him, I went through several stages of grief before I came to the decision that there was nothing I could do about it, so I'd better find a way to live with it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not happy about this at all. Not even a little bit. My problem is how to deal with it and what the consequences will be. More on those consequences later. Let's backtrack a bit so I can give you some backstory. Hello, my name is Michael Harrison, and my wife's name is Rebecca Winters. She decided not to change her last name when we got married 12 years ago. We have 2 children, both girls, Emma, who's 11, and Sophie, who's 9. I work as a senior software engineer for a tech company downtown Tampa, primarily developing healthcare management systems. The work is demanding but allows for some flexibility. I can work from home when needed, which has become increasingly important as I've taken on more parenting responsibilities. Rebecca works as a marketing manager for a mid-sized firm near West Shore. She handles digital marketing campaigns for various clients, which often requires her to work late or attend networking events. At least, that's what she tells me. So shortly after I found out that my wife of 12 years was cheating on me with another man, I went to see a lawyer in downtown Tampa. I needed to know what my options were. I went there armed with all the indignation I could muster, and believe me when I tell you, it was a lot. My learned counselor looked at me, nodded her head, and after a few questions about Rebecca and me and the kids, she exhaled deeply, leaned back in her chair, and began. After I finished spilling out my emotions, she said quietly, "Are you done now?" and began to enlighten me about what divorce would mean for me. Despite the fact that Florida has a significant population of gun owners, domestic violence in divorce cases is taken very seriously by the courts. Threatening or harming your spouse when you catch them cheating, or the person they're cheating with, is a felony under Florida law. In fact, all states in the U.S. are now no-fault states, and Florida follows this principle strictly. That said, the scales of justice in Florida family courts still tend to favor the mother if there are children in the marriage. Unless the mother has serious issues, substance abuse, neglect, or criminal behavior, family court judges in Tampa and throughout Florida typically award primary custody to her and then determine how the father will financially support both the children and the mother. So, in accordance with Florida family law, which prioritizes the children's stability above all else, the mother usually retains the family home, gets primary custody, receives the more reliable vehicle, and obtains substantial financial support to maintain the household. As a man initiating a divorce, all I would really accomplish is removing myself from the house and away from my kids, except for every other weekend, 1 evening per week, and alternating holidays. Everything else would remain with my wife, funded by my software engineer salary. Essentially, I'd be paying my wife to maintain her lifestyle while she entertains whoever she wants, and I'd be relegated to being a part-time father living in some cramped apartment near downtown Tampa, competing with a parade of my ex-wife's boyfriends for my daughter's attention. Yeah, right. Like I'm going to let that happen. I asked my lawyer if I could force my wife to leave. She frowned. That's a very bad idea, Michael. All she would have to do is file for a restraining order claiming you created a hostile environment. The Florida courts would order you to leave immediately, and you'd have virtually no chance of getting back in. Worse, it would hurt your chances for custody. Nope, that's not a good idea. So I'm totally screwed? My lawyer, God, how I love her $500 an hour rate, recommended a strategy I'd heard whispered about in online forums but thought was just bitter divorce guys talking nonsense. The plan essentially boiled down to cheaper to keep her, or strategic tolerance. The harsh reality was that if I could tolerate her affair, look the other way while she had her part-time boyfriend, I could maintain daily access to my kids and keep our family home and financial stability. I tried to visualize that scenario, and there were undeniable advantages. Then I tried to visualize the alternative weekend visitation and a studio apartment somewhere off Dale Mabry. And the mental image was more like a nightmare. A chill ran down my spine. Being relegated to a bit player in my own children's lives was absolutely not an option. With that harsh reality in mind, I had to decide what to do with my life, knowing that the woman I'd promised to love, honor, and cherish for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, forsaking all others until death do us part, had decided that the forsaking all others part wasn't quite what she had in mind. Yes, apparently marriage vows are just suggestions. Guidelines that can be modified when convenient to accommodate new desires, like sleeping with someone other than your spouse. Really wonderful. The sarcasm in my thoughts was thick enough to cut with a knife. So a few weeks later, after I managed to calm down and resist some very strong urges regarding my dear cheating wife, I sat down with Rebecca to discuss our marriage. She took it surprisingly well. I grabbed a beer from the fridge, we sat down at the kitchen table, and I began. So I'm having a hard time understanding how we're supposed to stay married when you want to be with some other guy. Michael, you don't understand. I'm still your wife. I still love you, and we're still going to be together for the rest of our lives. What I do with Brandon only happens once a week, and only because I need something that you, no matter how hard you try, can't give me right now. I shook my head and rolled my eyes. What the hell? Do you even realize how this makes me feel? You're telling me I'm not enough for you anymore? Jesus, Rebecca. No, that's not what I mean. Well, that's exactly what you just said. My voice was already rising. Rebecca, what I'm trying to say, if you'll let me finish, is that I love you and would never deny you anything. Oh, thank you. That makes it so much better. I'm thrilled to know I get your pity attention whenever you feel charitable. There's that sarcasm again. Sharp as broken glass, I turned away and walked into the kitchen. Suddenly, I needed another beer. I popped the cap, tossed it in the trash, and sat back down. Rebecca came over and put her hands on my shoulders. Michael, I've handled this all wrong. Let's go upstairs to our bedroom, and I'll show you how much I really love you. Why would you want to do that? You just made it crystal clear that I don't satisfy you. You literally just said it. Why don't you pack a bag and go to your boyfriend? I'm sure he can give you way more pleasure than trying to settle for me. I stood up from the table and walked away. At that point, I couldn't take any more. I wanted to punch something, break something, scream something. Instead, I went down to the basement office where I keep my home computer set up for freelance programming work and slammed the door. That's when my new life began, living with an unfaithful wife who showed zero remorse for her adventures. While she was out of the house the next day, supposedly at her marketing job but probably with Brandon, I moved all her belongings into the basement guest room. Get it? I packed all her toiletries into boxes and relocated everything to the bathroom adjacent to her new basement quarters. When she came home the next morning, World War III erupted. Michael, what the hell did you do with all my clothes? Where the fuck did you put everything? Now she was screaming. Finally, I had her full attention. I took my sweet time responding while she stood there glaring at me. Well, I decided that since you don't want to be intimate with me, since you're obviously thinking about your boyfriend during any time we spend together, I thought it would be better if we had separate bedrooms. Now you can come and go whenever you want without disturbing me. That's why I relocated all your stuff to the basement bedroom. Dead silence. Then I added, "You're welcome." I turned and walked away. As I left the room, I added, "Now you won't have to worry about enduring disappointing intimacy with me anymore." After that, the temperature in our house dropped to absolute zero. Damn it. What the hell am I supposed to do now? I'm not sleeping in that godforsaken spare bedroom in the basement. No way in hell. As soon as Michael left for his software development job downtown, I got to work moving everything back to where it belonged. The kids, Emma and Sophie, stared at me like I'd lost my mind, completely confused about what was happening. I didn't stop until every single item was back in its proper place in our master bedroom. Then I focused on making an amazing dinner. One of Michael's favorite meals is meatloaf with garlic mashed potatoes and green beans. It's simple, comfort food just like him, but he and the kids absolutely love it. When he got home from debugging code all day at his downtown office, dinner was almost ready. I told him to get the kids washed up for dinner. He complied without saying a word to me. As we sat down to eat, the girls chattered about typical kid stuff. Emma was excited about making the middle school soccer team, and Sophie was working on a science project about Florida ecosystems. Michael engaged with them completely, listening and responding, but never once looked in my direction or acknowledged my existence. After dinner, Michael handled cleanup duty. This was our established routine. Whoever didn't cook handled the dishes. He then got the girls ready for bed, read them their bedtime story, and tucked them in. When he came downstairs, he went straight to our home office where he keeps his computer set up for freelance programming projects. I could hear him typing away on his laptop, probably working on a client's database system or updating some healthcare software. When he finally came upstairs around 11 p.m., I was already in bed. He took his usual shower, brushed his teeth, and silently slipped into bed. He immediately rolled away from me and turned off the bedside lamp. I tried to cuddle up to him, to put my arm around him, but he gently but firmly removed my hand and pulled the covers up between us like a barrier. The next few weeks followed the exact same pattern. The emotional temperature in our house had plummeted to Arctic levels. But Michael would come around. I just needed to be patient. He would eventually realize that the few hours I spent with Brandon meant absolutely nothing to our marriage or our family. My work at the marketing firm was getting more demanding too. We'd landed a new account, a chain of restaurants throughout the Tampa Bay area, and I was spending more time developing their digital presence. The late meetings and networking events were legitimate, but they also provided convenient cover for my time with Brandon. What Michael didn't understand was that my relationship with Brandon wasn't about replacing him or our marriage. It was about feeling alive again, feeling desired in a way that the routine of suburban married life had somehow dulled. When I was with Brandon, I felt like the woman I used to be before I became consumed with soccer practice schedules, school pickup routines, and household management. Brandon saw me as Rebecca the woman, not just Rebecca the wife and mother. 3 months later, I haven't been intimate with Rebecca at all. My frustration level is building every single day. To deal with the stress, I started getting up at 5 a.m. and going for runs through our West Chase neighborhood, winding through the tree-lined streets as the Florida sun began to rise. The first few days were absolutely brutal. I thought I was going to collapse or tear something internal. My feet were killing me. My ankles and knees were screaming in protest. But by the third week, things started improving. My body stopped hurting as much, and I actually began enjoying those quiet early morning runs. My distance gradually increased. By the end of the second month, I was running just over 6 miles every morning, sometimes making it all the way to the West Park Village shopping center and back. Along with the running, I lost about 15 pounds and started feeling physically stronger. Emotionally, that's a completely different story that I knew I had to do something more. But what? The RV. This was something I'd been thinking about for months. I wanted to buy a travel trailer and the truck to pull it, so I could take the kids camping and exploring Florida's amazing state parks. What did I have to lose by making this purchase? What could Rebecca possibly complain about? I already knew what she'd say. Why the hell do you need a camping trailer? My response would obviously be, why the hell do you need a boyfriend? How could she possibly argue with that logic? I took the kids to the Florida RV Super Show at the State Fairgrounds in Tampa, and saying they were excited would be a massive understatement. They were absolutely thrilled. Emma and Sophie couldn't stop talking about camping adventures, and with every trailer we toured, they made elaborate plans about where to store their stuff and what activities we'd do at different campgrounds throughout Florida. Dad, can we go to the Everglades? Emma asked, bouncing with excitement. And Ginny Springs. I want to swim in those clear blue pools. Sophie added. I had a reasonable budget in mind when we started looking, but that went out the window fast when I realized that modern RV camping doesn't come cheap. Plus, I'd need a heavy-duty truck to pull whatever we bought. Quality trucks are expensive, and they burn a lot of diesel fuel when towing large trailers around Florida's highways. So I faced a classic decision. Do it right or do it cheap. The girls' excitement convinced me to do it right, and they helped me make the final choice. After extensive research and comparison shopping, I decided on a used 2-year-old Grand Design Transcend with bunk beds for the girls and a queen bed for me. This trailer had everything we'd need for comfortable camping throughout Florida, 1.5 bathrooms, 2 flat-screen TVs, which I planned to mostly ignore, and even air conditioning for those hot summer days. The whole thing was nearly 37 feet long. All I needed was the right truck to pull this mobile mansion. I got lucky and found a 2-year-old GMC Sierra 2500 HD crew cab with the Duramax diesel engine. An elderly couple from Clearwater was selling it because health issues prevented them from traveling to visit their grandchildren in Georgia. Instead of camping around the southeast, they decided to stay closer to home in the Tampa Bay area. I negotiated a fair deal and bought the truck. Total investment, about $82,000 for both the truck and trailer. I was going to use this setup to show my daughters the incredible natural beauty of Florida and maybe even venture to neighboring states like Georgia and the Carolinas. I wanted Rebecca to understand that this was a crucial time in our children's lives, and she could choose to be part of these experiences or not. If she chose her boyfriend over family adventures, that would be her decision and ultimately her loss. A few months later, Rebecca is with her boyfriend Brandon at his downtown Tampa condo near the Riverwalk. So Rebecca, you mentioned that your husband and kids went camping. How come you didn't go with them? A long pause. I don't know. I'm irritated that Michael bought that expensive trailer without really discussing it with me. So you don't like camping? No, it's not that I dislike camping. It's him trying to control what I can and can't do. What do you mean by that? He's pissed off about me spending time with you. I told him he doesn't own me. It's my body, and I decide what I do with it. So I thought you said your husband was okay with you and me being together. That's what you told me months ago. Well, it's not exactly that he agreed to it. It's more that I informed him I was going to do it. I mean, it doesn't take anything away from him or our marriage. I'm not sure why he's making such a big deal about it. Brandon laughed, setting down his glass of wine and looking out at the Hillsborough River through his floor-to-ceiling windows. I think I understand his problem. He's upset because you weren't honest with him. When you got married, did you realize that monogamy wasn't going to work for you? There was a thoughtful pause while Rebecca considered this, absently playing with her wedding ring. Brandon continued, So you never told him beforehand that you planned to sleep with me? No, Michael had no idea. So how did he find out? Rebecca took a deep breath. He saw my phone on the kitchen counter and read the texts I'd sent you. Then he went through my purse and found some personal items. He took out the box, examined it, and placed it on the kitchen table. He looked directly at me, pointed at the box, and asked, So who the hell is B? And why do you have this stuff in your purse? I realized I was caught, so I tried to deflect and asked him, "Why can't I have these things?" He stared at me with wide eyes, obviously expecting a better explanation. That's all I could come up with. That night we had our first major fight. Lots of yelling, some really harsh words. I told him he didn't own me and I could do whatever I wanted. This is the 21st century. It's my body, and I make the decisions about it. So you completely blindsided him. How did he react? He just stood there, didn't say anything, and slowly shook his head. Then he walked away. What did you do then? Nothing much. I came here later that evening. Yes, I remember that night. So let me ask you something. Are you planning to leave your husband? Oh, hell no. I don't want to leave him. I love Michael. I love our children. I love our home and our life together. We have a really good situation just the way it is. I'm not planning to change anything. So you don't think Michael will eventually get fed up with you sleeping with another man? He'll realize it doesn't mean anything to our relationship. Things between him and me will go back to normal. Brandon made a skeptical sound, walking over to his balcony door. You might want to reconsider that assumption. Your husband probably isn't thrilled about being second priority to your boyfriend. What do you mean, second priority? Well, if it were me, I'd kick you out just on principle. Why would you do that? No normal man wants to discover his wife is cheating. At least no mentally healthy man. Is your husband into weird stuff? Does he want to watch us together? Hell no. Michael's not like that at all. So you and your husband still have relations? There was a long pause while Rebecca considered the question. No, not for several months now. Another contemplative silence. That's not a good sign, is it? What do you think? Do you honestly believe your husband is happy about this situation? I don't know what I can do about it. He doesn't want to be intimate with me. Why do you think that might be? Another long pause while Rebecca pondered this. What can I do to get him to want me again? Oh, sweetheart, you're in deep trouble. Let me ask you again. Are you planning to leave him? Because from his perspective, it probably looks like you already have. What? No, I don't want to leave him. I love him and our kids, and I don't want to lose them. But isn't that exactly what you've already done? Don't get me wrong. I enjoy our time together, but I don't want to marry you. You understand that, right? Yes, of course. So as I see it, you have a serious problem. If you want to keep your husband and children, you need to take action immediately, or he's going to replace you with someone who actually wants to be his wife. And then you'll be in real pain. Maybe you and I should take a break so he'll be intimate with you again, and you can give him what you've been giving me. You think that's what I should do? Jesus, for such a smart woman, you can be incredibly dense sometimes. Just focus on him for a change. Rebecca fell silent, thinking about this. Brandon waited, then asked, Do you like your family, your home, and the life you have with them? Rebecca replied, Of course I do. Brandon smiled grimly. Would you like to live in a tiny one-bedroom apartment and see your kids every other weekend? No, why would I want that? Brandon continued. Then for God's sake, get dressed, go home, fix things with your husband, and pray it's not too late. Otherwise, you better start apartment hunting, because your husband is going to replace you with a woman who actually appreciates what she has. Trust me on this. I loaded up the trailer while the girls excitedly packed their belongings. We were planning a week-long camping adventure at Ginny Springs State Park, about 2 hours north of Tampa. The weather forecast promised perfect temperatures and maybe some light afternoon showers, typical beautiful Florida spring weather in March. I assumed Rebecca wouldn't want to join us, so I planned accordingly. When the girls had everything ready, we climbed into the truck and headed north on I-75, the girls chattering excitedly about swimming in the crystal-clear springs. The week was absolutely wonderful. The weather cooperated perfectly, and we spent time hiking nature trails, swimming in the 72-degree spring water, and just relaxing together. One day we drove to nearby Rainbow Springs State Park for more swimming and snorkeling. It was a huge hit with both girls. "Dad, the water is so clear I can see the bottom," Sophie exclaimed, her face mask still dripping as she climbed out of the spring. "Can we come back here next month?" Emma asked, already planning our next adventure. Rebecca's absence wasn't as disappointing to the girls as I'd expected. We talked about it briefly, and they surprised me with their insight. They'd clearly noticed that their mom was spending less and less time at home and with the family. "Mom's always at work now," Emma said matter-of-factly as we roasted marshmallows over the campfire one evening. "Yeah, she missed my science fair last week," Sophie added. Mrs. Patterson asked where she was. How could I explain to them that nothing their mom was doing was their fault? Everything she was doing was about her own selfish choices. After Brandon's reality check, Rebecca found herself thinking seriously about her situation. Had she gone too far with her attitude toward Michael? She wasn't sure, but she kept thinking about Brandon's suggestion to focus on Michael instead of their affair. But would Michael even let her try to fix things? Had she already crossed the point of no return? When we returned home, Rebecca was there waiting for us. It seemed strange. She appeared different, almost like she was genuinely interested in what we'd been doing. "I'm so glad you're all home. It's been really quiet here all week," she said, helping us unload camping gear from the truck. I glanced at her sideways while I worked on disconnecting the trailer from the truck. "How was your week with your boyfriend?" No response to that question. She tried again. "What campground did you stay at?" I grimaced. "Why do you care? You've made it clear you're not interested in camping." "Just curious." It looked really nice in the photos Emma posted on Instagram. We stayed at Ginny Springs near High Springs. It's got crystal clear water and great hiking trails. The girls loved it. I continued working on the trailer setup. When I finished, I went inside, gathered all our dirty clothes, and started a load of laundry. Then I told the girls to get cleaned up while I started dinner. After a quick shower, I went to the kitchen to begin cooking. Rebecca was there. "I can handle dinner. Let me cook for everyone tonight." She was acting completely different, like she actually cared about what the rest of us were doing. "That's okay. I'll make spaghetti and meat sauce. I've got everything I need, and it won't take long." I guess I was being somewhat dismissive, but honestly, what did she expect after months of indifference? I prepared dinner while the kids sat around the kitchen table talking about our week's adventures. Rebecca acted like she was genuinely interested in hearing about our experiences. What was going on with her? Usually, she didn't seem to care about anything except having more time with her boyfriend. During dinner, I casually asked if she was going out that evening. She looked directly at me and said she wasn't. I mentioned that we needed to coordinate the upcoming week's schedule, who would handle school pickup and drop-off, after-school activities, Emma's soccer practice, Sophie's art class. I'd assumed I'd be handling all of that since Rebecca had become pretty unreliable as a family member. She shocked me by volunteering to handle all the kids' transportation if I wanted her to. "Won't that interfere with your plans with Brandon?" She looked me straight in the eye. "My family is my priority. You know that." What complete bullshit. We'd been her lowest priority for months. That much was undeniably clear. Something was definitely going on. I needed to figure out what had changed. 6 months later, we're now in the fall of 2014. I've had some strange developments in my life. Really strange developments. I have an uneasy truce with my wife, Rebecca. I've made it clear to her that even though she's sleeping with her boyfriend, I'm not going to throw her out on the street or file for divorce. My lawyer made it crystal clear that I would be on the losing end of that battle. The kids would lose too. Why does Florida family law seem to encourage this kind of behavior? Rebecca likes her current arrangement, and she doesn't want to rock the boat to the point where we end up living in separate homes, each of us fighting for maximum time with the kids. The children would suffer the most, and that wouldn't be fair to them. Hell, it would be devastating to their emotional development. So I decided to stand my ground and stay married to Rebecca, at least until the kids were grown and could make their own decisions about college and their futures. Emma would graduate high school in 7 years, Sophie in 9 years. Those target dates were clearly marked on my mental calendar. After Rebecca informed me that she had a boyfriend and planned to continue seeing him at least once a week, I slowly shifted into defensive mode and started implementing some changes. I told you about the travel trailer I bought and how the girls and I started exploring Florida state parks, much to Rebecca's displeasure. Rebecca viewed my purchase as revenge. I didn't care how she interpreted it. I wanted to do something I knew she disliked and couldn't control. But I had to do more than that. Every action has consequences. Rebecca needed to see what the consequences were for her choices. Rebecca's perspective. Since I started seeing Brandon, my schedule hasn't changed dramatically. We've been meeting once or twice a week, usually in the afternoons at his downtown Tampa condo. We spend time together, talk briefly, and then go about our separate lives. I enjoy being with him for a few hours. It's completely different from my relationship with Michael. How do I maintain both parts of my life simultaneously? Now that Michael knows about Brandon, he refuses to be intimate with me. The emotional climate in our house has become frigid, and Michael has become very secretive about his activities outside the home. The marketing firm has been keeping me busier too. We landed 3 new clients this quarter, a medical practice in South Tampa, a law firm near Hyde Park, and that restaurant chain I mentioned. I'm genuinely working longer hours, but it also provides perfect cover for my time with Brandon. When I tell Michael I have a client dinner or networking event, it's often true. When it's not, well, he can't tell the difference. Michael's perspective. Florida state law dictates that infidelity isn't a factor in divorce proceedings. If we decided to divorce, Rebecca would have a significant advantage. The courts don't concern themselves with who's sleeping with whom. So when I decided against divorcing Rebecca, I began questioning my own role in this new dynamic. If Rebecca could have a boyfriend without facing consequences while still being protected by the courts, why couldn't I have a girlfriend? It was the same principle, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Yes, so I gradually started engaging in activities I enjoyed that offered social opportunities, and eventually it paid off. There were numerous online dating platforms and even specialized sites designed for married people seeking companionship. I avoided those entirely because of the risk of encountering people with questionable motives. Call me cautious, but I have children to consider, and ending up as a news story about internet predators didn't appeal to me. No, I stuck to what I knew and trusted. It took time to get back into the social scene. I resumed activities I genuinely enjoyed. I joined the Tampa-based cycling club, got back into running, started learning guitar, and spent as much time as possible camping with my kids throughout Florida's beautiful state parks. Over time, I met some wonderful women, and as we became friends and trusted each other, I shared my family situation with them. They even introduced me to other women for casual dates. That's how I met Amanda. Amanda is 3 years younger than me, divorced, and has a 5-year-old daughter. Actually, Amanda is a member of the Tampa-based cycling club I joined, but I didn't really get to know her until another cyclist, Jennifer, introduced us. Jennifer and Amanda were close friends, and after one of our weekly group rides, Jennifer invited me to join them for drinks at Armature Works, where many club members gather after rides. I usually declined these social gatherings because I needed to get home to the kids, making sure they had dinner, helping with homework, and handling bedtime routines. Not that Rebecca couldn't manage these things, but I'd become the reliable parent for evening responsibilities. Amanda works as a pediatric nurse supervisor at Tampa General Hospital. She's tall, brunette, blue-eyed, attractive, physically fit from all the cycling, and has an amazing sense of humor. Her daughter Lily looks just like her. Same dark hair, same bright smile. Over the following months, we developed a friendship that extended beyond bike rides. I was honest with Amanda that I was looking for companionship, not commitment, whatever that meant exactly, but purely for emotional connection and stress relief. She told me she was seeking the same thing. After her ex-husband abandoned her and Lily, Amanda mentioned she'd never experienced RV camping. Her family had always been tent campers when she was growing up in North Carolina. We discussed it, and I invited her and Lily to join me and my daughters for a luxury camping experience. That's how our relationship deepened. Rebecca had never shown interest in camping. She preferred spending that time with her boyfriend. So I decided to spend those weekends with my new friend. I never informed Rebecca that I was bringing Amanda and Lily on our camping trips. I figured what she didn't know wouldn't hurt her. If Florida courts don't care about these arrangements, why should I worry about it? About a year later, we're now in early fall of 2015. I'd reached my breaking point. It was time to shake things up significantly to address some long overdue issues. Our family's equilibrium had been off-kilter for too long. I was going to try to restore some balance. More specifically, I needed to have some serious conversations. I knew Rebecca wasn't ready to be a faithful wife and committed mother, and I wanted to have an important discussion with Amanda about our future. After dinner on a Friday night in September, I opened a bottle of wine for Rebecca and grabbed a beer for myself. I walked over and handed her the glass. She looked up suspiciously. "What are you buttering me up for? What do you want to discuss?" Simple question. "Are you in love with him?" Rebecca took a large sip of wine, staring at the glass instead of meeting my eyes. "Come on, Rebecca. You know where this is heading. You started this situation. It's time to resolve it." The kids were in the family room watching Netflix. Emma was now 12 and in 7th grade, catching up on some teen drama, and Sophie was 10 and in 5th grade, absorbed in a nature documentary about sea turtles. Now seemed like the right time for this conversation. I rarely drink anymore, but I enjoy a good craft beer occasionally. I picked up my glass and began. "So how do we want to handle this? The easy way or the expensive, complicated way?" "What are you talking about, Michael? How long has this been going on? Come on. How long have you been sleeping with other men while married to me? Why is that relevant? How long did you think you could continue this behavior, Rebecca? Did you imagine us growing old together while you maintained a boyfriend on the side? How often are you with him now?" She looked up at me. "Why do we have to discuss this now? We're both managing fine with our current arrangement. Why change anything?" I shook my head and took a drink. "I know what you've been doing. Do you have any idea what I've been doing?" "Well, you and the girls camp frequently. You cycle a lot, and I know you've been doing other activities." "Yes, I've been doing other activities, as you put it. Yes, the girls and I have been camping extensively since we discovered my true value to you. And yes, I've pursued several other interests." Rebecca looked at me with an expression that was half curious, half apprehensive, like she wanted to know but simultaneously feared information that might disrupt her comfortable situation. She was doing well under the current arrangement. She figured that if we divorced, I would suffer most, and the kids would suffer enormously, so she assumed I would do everything possible to minimize the impact on the children. That was her insurance policy. She could do whatever she wanted because she knew that, for my children's sake, I was willing to tolerate almost anything. But she didn't realize I had my own life and plans developing. "Rebecca, you haven't answered my question. Do you love him? Are you planning a long-term relationship with him?" "Michael, I don't really consider Brandon a serious boyfriend." I interrupted her. "For God's sake, Rebecca, stop the bullshit. How long have you been sleeping with Brandon? How many others were there before him? And are Emma and Sophie even mine? How long have you been using me? You've been a terrible wife lately, and if you haven't realized it yet, I'm not happy with you or the state of our marriage. Hell, we haven't had a real marriage for the past year and a half. And tonight I want you to understand that's going to change." "What? What are you saying?" "Cut the sweetheart act. All I am to you is a security blanket, someone who handles all the boring responsibilities of marriage while you run to your boyfriend for excitement. You and I haven't been intimate in months, and I don't see that changing." Rebecca remained silent. I continued. "So it's time for you and me to make some decisions." Rebecca looked up. What are you talking about? This was getting ridiculous. What do you think I'm talking about? I'm talking about deciding how to end this charade. I'm talking about you moving out of this house. I'm tired of being used. Rebecca's head snapped up when she heard, moving out of this house. I'm not moving out of our house, Michael. It's ridiculous to think I would leave our home. Well, it's pretty obvious to me that you'd rather be with your boyfriend than be part of this family. Decide what you actually want, Rebecca. I stood up, finished my beer, and walked to the kitchen sink. I could feel my blood pressure rising and realized I was close to losing control. I needed to leave the room. At this point, I'd accomplished my objective. The gauntlet was thrown down. I wanted to see how Rebecca would respond. Rebecca's thoughts. Damn it. I need to consult a lawyer and make sure Michael can't force me out of the house. Why can't he just accept the situation? It's not like I'm denying him anything. Well, I'm not. But he hasn't approached me intimately in months. He doesn't want me anymore. If I can't get him to want me again, we might be in trouble. If Michael and I divorce, I should get the kids, the house, and part of his software engineer salary to support everything. Michael will be the one who loses if he tries to get rid of me. He won't want to move out. I'm confident I have a significant advantage. I just need to be patient, and everything will work out. It would be better if I could get Michael to be intimate with me again. I love him, I just need Brandon too. I feel so fulfilled when Brandon and I are together. If I maintain this balance, everything will be fine. Michael knows I'll eventually return my focus to him. This thing with Brandon isn't permanent. Eventually, Michael and I will return to our normal relationship. In the meantime, I need Brandon as well. Michael's perspective. If Rebecca thinks I'm going to tolerate her behavior indefinitely, she needs to reconsider. It's time for some of those consequences I mentioned earlier. I started working online to reorganize our family finances. I opened a new checking account exclusively for my use and transferred approximately half of our savings into it. My salary from the software company and any freelance income were now being deposited into this new account. Each month, I transferred money to our joint household account to cover half of our bills. This meant Rebecca needed to understand that the free ride was over. She could start paying half of our living expenses. I wasn't going to subsidize her lifestyle so she could spend money on her boyfriend. I knew she was meeting Brandon at his condo, so she wasn't paying for hotels, but I wanted her to grasp the principle. My freelance work had been picking up too. I'd landed a contract with a healthcare system in St. Petersburg to upgrade their patient management software, and another with a medical practice group in Brandon, ironic name, I know, to develop a new scheduling system. The extra income gave me more financial flexibility to implement my plans. Rebecca's lawyer consultation. I didn't want Michael to know I'd actually consulted a lawyer. I found a family law attorney, Victoria Sterling, with offices near downtown Tampa. She explained Florida's divorce laws, that it's a no-fault state and that mothers typically receive custody of children. She looked at me and asked, "You want custody of your children, I assume?" I replied, "Of course." She made notes and asked about my income, Michael's income, child support, spousal support, alimony, and our mortgage balance on the house in Westchase. She asked, in a roundabout way, if there were any reasons why I might not receive custody of the children. I told her I couldn't think of any reason why I shouldn't get custody. I'm a good mother. She nodded. Meanwhile, I kept thinking about Brandon and how my relationship with him over the past 18 months might affect the court's opinion of me as a mother. As I left the lawyer's office on Kennedy Boulevard, I was troubled by doubts about whether I could win a custody battle against Michael. How ugly could this fight become? Michael called, and we planned another camping trip for the following weekend in October. Lily is excited about it. She loves the comfort and fun of Michael's RV. The three girls sleep in the bunk beds in the back, and we can hear them talking and giggling for hours after bedtime. Michael and I share the front bedroom and usually keep the door closed for privacy. I honestly cannot understand why Michael's wife would throw away what she has with him. She must be incredibly foolish. Michael is an amazing man. He's handsome, fit, intelligent, talented, energetic, has a wonderful smile and wicked sense of humor. He makes me and the kids laugh constantly, and it's obvious he genuinely cares about people. It's unfortunate that his wife doesn't appreciate him or his daughters. Rebecca's loss is definitely my gain. I divorced a selfish man who didn't want to be a father, and I have a wonderful daughter who means everything to me. When I met Michael, he seemed like a man who needed someone to care for him. As I got to know him better, I realized his wife was taking advantage of him. She wanted everything security and excitement. My friend Jennifer introduced us and told me about Michael's situation, how his wife openly disrespects him. Understanding Florida's divorce laws, I realized she had him in a difficult position. If he divorced her, he'd likely lose his children, and he couldn't accept that. So he was enduring the situation until the girls were adults. Then he could tell her to leave. I earn a good salary as a nursing supervisor at Tampa General Hospital and wasn't looking for a serious commitment, but I needed a companion for stress relief and emotional support. Having a good man in my life would be beneficial for both Lily and me. Michael turned out to be exactly that kind of man. Camping with him and his daughters was an added benefit for Lily and me. Simply put, we have fun together. Lily adores his girls, and they treat her like a little sister. Our longest trip together was 9 days to the Florida Keys in August. We camped at Bahia Honda State Park and spent time snorkeling, fishing, and exploring. We did some hiking and spent time at some of the most beautiful beaches in Florida. It was incredible, truly a perfect vacation. "Look, Amanda, I can see a parrotfish," Lily had exclaimed, her snorkel mask fogging up with excitement. "Dad, can we move to the Keys?" Emma had asked, only half joking as we watched the sunset from our campsite. Michael told me he thoroughly enjoyed our time together, and his girls obviously did too. We're planning more adventures throughout Florida and maybe even trips to Georgia state parks. The nursing supervisor role at Tampa General has been challenging but rewarding. Managing a team of 23 nurses across multiple pediatric units requires constant attention, but I love the work. Michael has been incredibly supportive of my career, often adjusting his work-from-home schedule to handle school pickups when I have late meetings or emergency situations at the hospital. We complement each other well. His flexible software engineering schedule meshes perfectly with my more structured hospital shifts. I returned to see my lawyer while Michael was taking the girls camping in the Keys. He was gone for over a week in August, giving me time to consult with my attorney about securing my rights to custody if Michael tried to force me out. My attorney is Victoria Sterling. She's in her early 50s and has been practicing family law in Florida for over 2 decades. I needed clarification on several issues. "Victoria, last time we talked, you told me that if Michael tried to divorce me, I would get the kids, the house, and he'd have to pay me monthly support." "Well, yes, I remember our discussion about your family, and you told me that custody of the children was your primary concern. Florida courts usually favor that, and I can tell you that most mothers I represent do receive custody. But there are exceptions." "What do you mean?" "If your husband can prove to the court that he's the more suitable parent for custody, then the court may grant his request for primary custody. It's not automatic that mothers receive custody. If the mother is deemed unfit for any reason, Florida judges won't automatically award her custody. Judges aren't blind, and I know of several cases where fathers rightfully received custody." "Victoria, is there anything I should know that might affect my ability to secure custody?" No, what aren't you telling me? I can't help you unless you're completely honest with me." "Well, Michael spends a lot of time with the girls, but so do I." "Could you be more specific, Rebecca? What exactly do you mean?" "Well, Michael often takes the girls camping and attends all their school events." "And you participate in these activities?" "I don't really enjoy outdoor activities, and I'm not comfortable with bugs and camping. Besides, my marketing job is very demanding, and I have to miss many school events." Victoria rolled her eyes. She knew her client was being deceptive. She realized Rebecca was trying to make herself look good. But family law courts in Florida see through such tactics and are experienced in determining who's the better parent for the children. Her husband's attorney would ensure the judge knew all the details of their relationship, all the parental responsibilities he handled, and how many family activities she missed. Damn, she had significant work ahead of her. The family court wouldn't care that Rebecca was sleeping with someone other than her husband. The court wouldn't care that Michael was involved with another woman. None of that mattered. What mattered was which parent was doing a better job raising the children. The fact that Rebecca was frequently absent put Michael at an advantage. Victoria needed to tell her client some harsh realities she'd need to address. Rebecca, I don't know how to say this gently. I'll be direct. Unless you step up and become a much more involved mother, your chances of receiving custody of your children in a divorce are, in my professional opinion, very slim. What are you talking about? Are you currently involved with another man? Well, is that a yes or no question? Yes, I am. How much time do you spend with him? We only see each other a few times a week. How much time do you actually spend with him? Really? Hours? What times of day and night? Not that much. Victoria raised her hand to stop Rebecca. If you're not completely honest with me and yourself, you can forget about custody of your children. How much time do you really spend with your boyfriend? Rebecca told the attorney about the actual time she was spending with Brandon. Victoria visibly grimaced as she made notes. Things weren't looking good. Victoria knew that if this went to court for custody, Rebecca would appear to have nearly abandoned her family to spend time with her boyfriend, and that wouldn't help her case at all. It was time for the first round of consequences for my unfaithful wife. It was Saturday night in late September, and the kids were already in bed after a busy day. Emma had her soccer game that morning, which Rebecca missed for a client brunch, and Sophie had spent the afternoon working on a school project about manatees. I went to the refrigerator, grabbed a beer, and pulled out a bottle of wine for Rebecca. She glanced at me knowingly, remembering that when I needed to discuss important matters, I always poured her wine. She cleared her throat slightly. It's a little late for beer, isn't it? It's only 9 o'clock. I want to discuss several things with you. What kind of things? I want to talk about our marriage and how we're managing it, about the daily responsibilities of married life. We need to clarify our individual obligations. Who's responsible for what? What exactly do you mean? I mean, you and I need to establish a clear understanding of what each of us is responsible for daily. I've made a list of some items and I'm sure you'll want to add to it. Let's begin. Rebecca took a very large sip of wine. I sipped my beer and pulled out a notebook where I'd written several points. First, we need to organize the financial aspects of our lives. We need to decide how much each of us contributes to household expenses. I know you weren't happy that I bought the truck and camper, so those payments are my responsibility. But running the house, supporting the kids, and all those expenses should be shared between us. I let that sink in for a few moments. So I think creating a basic budget clarifying who pays for what would be appropriate. Rebecca looked at me like I was a freight train bearing down on her. I outlined what I considered a reasonable breakdown of expenses each of us should handle. I wasn't going to subsidize her relationship with her boyfriend, and I wanted her to understand that as the person who'd been paying all the bills, I wasn't interested in continuing to fund everything while she enjoyed other activities. The mortgage on this house is $2,800 a month. Property taxes and insurance add another $600. That's $3,400 monthly just for housing. Then there's utilities, groceries, the girls' activities, car payments, insurance. We're looking at about $6,500 a month in total expenses. I think each of us should pay half. You know I don't make as much as you do, Rebecca protested. Then maybe you should consider a higher paying position, or take on more clients. Your marketing skills are good, you could freelance on the side. We talked until late that night, and it was 1 a.m. when I yawned, stretched, told Rebecca I was done for the evening, and got up to go to bed. I left all the paperwork, our monthly bills and financial statements right on the table. I headed upstairs for a shower and bed. Rebecca's reaction. What the hell? Michael wants to split our finances and make each of us pay half of all household costs and the kids' expenses. Damn, he knows I don't earn as much as he does with his software engineering salary. When I pointed that out, he just looked at me and said, maybe you should consider a higher paying position. As if I could just do that. This is all about Brandon and the time I spend with him. 4 days later, I was back at Victoria's office. Victoria, what did you want to see me about so soon? Have you decided to file for divorce? No, but last Saturday night he wanted to discuss our family finances. And he wants each of us to contribute 50% to running the house and daily expenses. Victoria's eyes widened, and her eyebrows raised. Tell me exactly what you and he discussed. Rebecca described the long conversation she'd had with her husband that Saturday night. Victoria asked questions and took notes. It was becoming very clear where this was heading. It also became apparent that my client had only told me part of the story and was trying to avoid the consequences of her affair. It turned out that Rebecca had been sleeping with someone other than her husband for almost 18 months. Her husband discovered this about a year ago and, after consulting with an attorney, realized he would essentially be paying for her to have fun while likely losing his children and significant money. This is what I usually have to explain to my male clients who discover their wives are cheating. Sad but true. Everything Rebecca told me indicated that her husband was laying groundwork for a separation agreement. An important fact about separation agreements. This type of legal document is designed to divide responsibilities before divorce proceedings begin. It's actually a prelude to divorce and signals the deterioration of the marriage and the beginning of asset division and resolution of major issues. In Rebecca and her husband's case, the main issues were their 2 daughters, which parent would have primary custody and who would remain in the family home. Rebecca was unable to demonstrate that she was the better parent for custody. She was spending time in an intimate relationship with a boyfriend while her husband was spending that time with the children. Florida family law courts take this very seriously. Michael was quietly building his case for custody, and I felt he was doing an effective job. I tried to tell Rebecca that things weren't going well for her, that her husband was preparing to demonstrate to the court that he and his wife were essentially living separate lives, that they weren't spending time together, and each was contributing about half of the family's daily expenses. Michael earned more than Rebecca as a software engineer, so he could afford to support the kids even after he and Rebecca were physically separated into different homes. I need to get Michael back in our bed and back to being my husband again. I know he must be frustrated. We haven't been intimate in months. If I can get him back in our bedroom, it won't take long for him to start being with me again. He'll realize that this Brandon situation means nothing to our marriage. Brandon only gets what's left over from my relationship with Michael. I'm Michael's wife, and my time with Brandon takes nothing away from being Michael's wife. Michael's perspective. Lately, Rebecca has been hinting that she still wants to be intimate with me and that she wouldn't deny me anything. A chill runs down my spine. The idea of being intimate with her seems so wrong now. It's not going to happen. After the girls go to bed, she gives me suggestive looks and hints that she wouldn't mind being intimate. I don't know what's motivating this behavior, but at this point I don't care. All I want is for her to leave me alone and focus on her responsibilities, taking care of the girls and the house. Everything else is just business. When the girls are grown and in college, I can do whatever I want and end this mockery of a marriage. She can move on to her next husband. He can deal with her need to sleep with other men. Not my problem. Time is running short. A few months later, we're now in early December of 2015. I'd had enough. I've been thinking seriously about ending this dysfunctional marriage regardless of the consequences. I've lost the ability to tolerate our current situation. Amanda and I are beginning to envision a future together, which means I need to do something about Rebecca. I need to push this whole situation to a resolution. I need to give her the right motivation. I decided to visit Brandon. I know where Brandon works as a real estate agent and where he lives in downtown Tampa. I decided he and I needed to have a frank conversation about Rebecca, about him, and about their future together. It was a Wednesday around 6 p.m. I leaned against Brandon's BMW as he left the real estate office where he worked near Hyde Park. He was on his phone when he approached, and when he saw me, he dropped the phone. I heard him mutter, "Fuck! You should pick that up. You don't want to lose it. Phones are expensive." He watched me carefully as he bent down to retrieve the phone. I'm sure he thought I was there to assault him. I wasn't about to do anything that could land me in jail. That would destroy my future plans. "Don't worry, Brandon. I'm not here to hurt you. Quite the opposite. We need to talk." I nodded toward my truck. "Get in. I'll buy you a beer, and we'll resolve some long overdue issues." He looked around for my car, but I was driving the truck, not my usual Subaru Outback. Brandon slowly walked to the passenger side and looked in the back seat, probably wondering if I had backup for whatever I was planning. Slowly, he got in. "Don't forget your seatbelt." I drove to Armature Works in Tampa Heights, a place I liked but hadn't visited recently with Rebecca, so I was confident I wouldn't see anyone I knew. I parked and got out. Brandon slowly emerged from the truck, and I locked it and headed for the entrance. "Come on, it's fine." I gestured toward the door. We went inside, and I found a table in a quiet corner where we could talk privately. I signaled the waitress, ordered an IPA, and nodded to Brandon to tell her what he wanted. "I'll have the same, please." I looked at him and could see his fear was intense. You could cut it with a knife. He stared at me. Not a word was spoken until the waitress brought our beers and I took a sip. I knew what I wanted to say. I just had to stick to my plan. I really wanted to jump across the table and beat the hell out of him, but that wouldn't work, so I had to follow my strategy. "Okay, it's time for you and me to work something out." He looked like he was about to run. "Relax. This will probably work out in your favor. I want some information. I have questions. I want honest answers, or our next meeting will be somewhere much less pleasant." He started to push back his chair. "Relax. If you talk to me honestly, you'll probably walk away from this unharmed. How long have you been sleeping with Rebecca?" He took a large gulp. For a while now." His voice was shaking. "Define a while. More precisely, please." He swallowed hard. "A little over 18 months. I nodded internally, thinking that eliminated the possibility of him being the father of either of my children. That was good news. It saved him from a much worse conversation. "Why did you and Rebecca start this affair?" Brandon looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "Come on, it's not a difficult question. How did you and she first meet?" "We met at a networking event at the Tampa Convention Center and started talking. She told me there was a rut in her marriage. She said she was tired of the routine. No excitement with her husband, just work, kids, and household responsibilities. We agreed to have drinks, and it developed from there." As he said these words, he gave me a confused look. Damn. I swallowed hard, preparing for the next question. "Do you and she love each other? Have you been sleeping with her for so long that you've developed real feelings for each other?" He refused to make eye contact. "Come on, just try to be honest. I'm not here to judge how you should or shouldn't feel about her. We're way beyond that." Brandon took a large gulp to build courage. "It's complicated for me. I have feelings for Rebecca, but not to the point where I want her to leave you. I like our arrangement. I like the intimacy without commitment. I'm not even 30 yet, and I don't want to settle down with one person. How many women are you involved with like this?" When people avoid eye contact while answering, it usually means you won't like the response. I knew what was coming. "You don't have an exclusive relationship with her, do you?" He shook his head no. I leaned back and thought for a moment. I figured Rebecca was quietly counting on him as her backup plan if things went badly with me. If she discovered that Brandon wasn't exclusive with her, it would be a shock, but that wasn't my concern. "Well, buddy, Be prepared for her to show up at your door with suitcases. You may not have realized it, but sleeping with someone else's wife comes with consequences. You can do whatever you want. I'm not going to tell Rebecca what she can or can't do, who she can or can't sleep with, but that doesn't mean I won't take other actions. Some of those actions may not be what you want, but right now, I don't care about your preferences. I stood up and threw $40 on the table. As I turned to leave, I told him, "You should be careful in dark places," and walked away. I needed to get out of the apartment. I went to Brandon's condo. He let me in, checking the hallway to make sure I was alone. We spent a couple of hours together. He said he had plans with friends and needed me to leave. I started getting dressed, and he practically pushed me out into the hallway. Something was different about him lately. He seemed more distant, less interested in our conversations. I wondered if he was getting tired of our arrangement. Michael's perspective. A week after talking to Brandon, I decided it was time for the next step. My attorney had all the papers prepared and ready to serve Rebecca. I told her I wanted Rebecca to receive them at home. No need for public embarrassment by serving papers at her workplace. I had all the evidence I needed to go to court and obtain full custody of the girls. Amanda waited quietly in the background while I organized my thoughts. She and I had grown very close. That's a significant understatement. When the divorce dust settled, I intended to ask her to move in with me. I genuinely love this woman. She's delightful to talk with, has charm and personality that I never tire of. Her sense of humor makes me laugh, and I work to keep her and all 3 children laughing. We have an amazing time together. Could we become a real family? I didn't know, so it was a major question that could only be answered after my divorce from Rebecca and a period where she wasn't interfering in the background. I decided to talk to Rebecca that evening after the girls went to bed. I brought her a glass of wine and handed it to her. She knew something serious was coming. "You need to stay home tomorrow morning. There will be a delivery for you." "What? You know what it is?" She leaned back and exhaled. "I knew this might happen. Why do you have to do this? Can't we just let each other do what we need to do for a while? Why does it have to come to this? You started this. You knew I wouldn't tolerate you having a boyfriend for sex, but you also knew that Florida divorce courts don't care about infidelity. With 2 kids involved, you were counting on the courts giving you custody, and ultimately I'd be the one paying so you could have your fun. You knew I'd do almost anything to keep my children, so you went ahead and did what you wanted. You ignored my feelings. All I wanted was a wife who cared enough about her family to stay faithful. But no, you couldn't do that. You had to find yourself a guy to sleep with and not care about the consequences to your family. Well, now it's time to discover what the real price is. I needed to control my emotions, so I stood up, walked to the fridge and got another beer. My blood pressure was rising because I felt my face getting hot. I poured the beer and returned to the table. Better to discuss this now than pay lawyers a fortune to sort it out later. "Michael, I'm gonna fight you on this divorce. I love you and our family." I held up my hand. "You show your love pretty poorly. You've shown your love for Brandon. Don't sit there and deny it because I know you're lying to me and yourself. Your actions speak louder than words." She looked at me. "You know I'll get custody of the girls, and you'll only see them once a week and every other weekend, and you'll be paying to support us all. I know you don't want that. Stop this ridiculous divorce. You and I will be a couple again, and everything will return to normal. I know that's what you want. 2 years ago, yes, that's what I wanted, but not now. You've done too much damage. Let me ask you this. Are you ready to give up Brandon?" That question created silence. "Why don't we reach some kind of agreement? I'll spend time with him, and you can do what you like. I'll even agree to go camping with you and the girls. You'll love it. I know the girls will too." I started losing control. "Would you like that? I mean, it's only when your back's against the wall that you try to bargain your way out of the corner you've created. Why are you suddenly agreeing to go camping?" I don't want you to abandon our family for something that means nothing to us, to you and me. My time with Brandon doesn't take anything away from you. You're spending time with the kids, you love it, and they love it. You know they love it, and I know you love being with them. Don't do that. Don't lose them just because I spend a couple of hours a week with someone else. I wanted to say something, but I couldn't reveal the strategy my lawyer had planned for the main proceedings. Rebecca, I used to love you very much, but when you started giving your love to another man, you should have known there would be consequences. Michael, I don't love him. What we do is purely recreational. I love you and our children. You are my family. If you would come back to our bed, I could show you what you mean to me. Do you love me enough to give up Brandon? There was no answer. Rebecca stared at her hands and her wine glass. I thought, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Don't go to work in the morning. Good night. I went to bed. Michael got up early and got the girls ready for school. We didn't say a word to each other before they left. Emma barely looked at me. She was still upset that I'd missed her soccer game last weekend. Sophie gave me a quick hug but seemed distant too. 1,000 thoughts ran through my head until I heard the doorbell around 10 a.m. I walked to the door and was greeted by a middle-aged woman wearing business attire. Attached to her jacket pocket was an official-looking ID badge. Good morning. Are you Rebecca Winters? Yes, I am. May I see some identification to verify this? Please? I went back into the house and pulled my driver's license from my purse. I held it out to her and she took a picture of it with her phone. She then picked up a large manila envelope from under her arm and handed it to me. Ma'am, you've been served. Before I could say anything, she took 2 steps back and took another picture of me holding the envelope. What the hell? She turned around, walked quickly to her car, and drove away. For a moment, I stood frozen on the front step of our Westchase home, staring at the envelope, realizing I had just been served divorce papers. That was it. I walked into the house, placed the envelope on the dining room table, sat down and stared at it. I thought that if I didn't open it, it wasn't real. Michael wasn't really going to end our marriage. I could keep doing what I wanted to do. But for the first time, I wondered if spending time with Brandon wasn't such a good idea. What was I supposed to do now? I grabbed a glass of water and sat at the table, staring at the envelope. Very slowly, I picked it up and used a kitchen knife to cut open the flap. Inside was something that was going to change my life forever. Why did Michael have to do this? Why couldn't he just let me have my arrangement? Eventually, it would be over and it would be just the two of us. We would be together while the girls grew up and went to college. We would be able to travel more and do the things we talked about doing after we got married. We both work demanding jobs, and that leaves us little time for intimacy. Me being with Brandon occasionally wasn't a big deal. It didn't interfere with my family responsibilities. It didn't mean anything to Michael, so why did it become such a huge issue? When I came home after being with Brandon, my needs were met, and I felt like I was becoming a better wife and mother. What Michael didn't know wouldn't hurt him. I was stupid to admit to the affair with Brandon. I should have been more careful to keep it secret, and now look what happened. Things spiraled out of control that I need to call Victoria and schedule an appointment. When Rebecca Winters came to my office in a panic the next day, I realized her husband had reached his limit and decided to pursue divorce. From my professional perspective, he had been far too patient with her. But after reading the divorce petition his attorney had prepared, I understood why he'd waited. The case for her husband to receive full custody of the 2 minor children and retain the family home was meticulously prepared. He had documented every instance since her affair came to light, noting all the times Rebecca was absent when she should have been with her family. There were school events, family camping trips, daily routines, school pickup and drop-off responsibilities, after-school sports and activities, even holiday school concerts. At first glance, this painted Rebecca Winters as an absent parent who prioritized her personal desires over spending time with her family. The petition also detailed all the evenings and weekends Rebecca intentionally spent with her boyfriend, Brandon Cole, including their public appearances with displays of affection. Names were listed of people, mostly mutual friends of Michael and Rebecca, who had witnessed her in public with Brandon Cole. There were even printed copies of cell phone photos people had taken of Rebecca and Brandon together in public, holding hands and kissing at places like Hyde Park Village and West Shore Plaza. These photos had been taken by Michael and Rebecca's friends and provided to Michael through various channels. Rebecca was in serious trouble from multiple angles. She sat quietly in the chair at my conference table while I reviewed the documents. I tried to imagine the questions a Florida family court judge might ask and the answers that would be given. It was concerning to hear Rebecca try to justify her actions with Brandon Cole. It wasn't that she was sleeping with Brandon Cole that would concern family courts. It was that Rebecca Winters had neglected her children and husband to spend time with Brandon Cole. This was exactly the kind of behavior that could sink her case. I needed to prepare to tell Rebecca that she was likely going to lose, and it might be better to essentially agree to her husband's demands. Sure, they could negotiate some minor items, furniture, jewelry, savings, a vehicle, but generally Michael wanted his children, his home, and to keep most of his software engineering income to support the kids. Everything else was secondary to him. Rebecca, have you read this dissolution of marriage petition? She stammered slightly. I skimmed through it, but I can't remember all the details. How do I stop this divorce? Michael, the girls, and I are one family, and I want to keep it that way. I was beginning to think my client was somewhat delusional. She was ignoring the reality of the situation. Michael held most of the advantages in this case, and I was going to have to work extremely hard to level the playing field. Rebecca, I need to speak with your husband's attorney before I can advise you on what you can and cannot do. Remember, we've discussed the factors Florida courts consider when determining which parent should receive custody of children. Based on what I'm reading here, I'm not confident you'll receive custody to the extent you want. As for Michael remaining your husband, that's not going to happen. What do you mean? Can't lose him. He's the father of my children. We're married. He can't just walk away from me and the kids. Her tone was indignant. I leaned forward slightly, looking into her eyes. You've forgotten our previous conversations, haven't you? Florida law allows either spouse to obtain a divorce regardless of the other's wishes. It's clear here that Michael is determined that your marriage will end. It's also clear that he wants his children to live with him, not you. Rebecca leaned back and fidgeted. It's Brandon, isn't it? Michael is jealous of Brandon. And you thought he wouldn't be? You had an affair with Brandon Cole for 18 months, neglecting your husband and children, and you thought Michael wouldn't care. How do I fix this? There's no fix. There's only trying not to lose everything. I paused and stated the obvious. What did you think would happen? I got no response from my client. I hate when they ignore their own responsibility. She was being foolish. Michael is requesting that you vacate the marital home no later than when the divorce is finalized. In Florida, there's a 60-day cooling-off period. During that time, you must resolve all financial and child custody matters. If you and he agree on the terms and sign the papers, the court can grant the divorce after 60 days. Otherwise, it will take 90 to 120 days. Can I request marriage counseling? You can, but it must begin during the cooling-off period and conclude before the 120 days expire. Do you think Michael might reconsider the divorce if you both attend marriage counseling? Rebecca let out a heavy sigh. It was slowly dawning on her that Michael was fed up with her infidelity and wanted to end their marriage. I decided that Michael was a very intelligent man who, with good legal advice, had prepared everything necessary for a successful divorce. Rebecca, I'll request a meeting with Michael and his attorney this week to see how firm he is and what we might be able to negotiate. Good. What should I do now? Go home. Be with the kids. Try to talk to Michael. You're both still living in the same house, I assume. Rebecca nodded. Go home and try to communicate with him if possible. Otherwise, There's not much you can do. She stood up and slowly walked out of my office. My assistant Jackie entered. That one looks like a deer in headlights. I'm guessing it didn't go well, and she's in trouble. I handed her the papers Rebecca had brought and asked her to contact Michael's attorney to schedule a meeting as soon as possible. My phone was unusually quiet most of the day. I assumed Rebecca was frantically calling everyone, trying to get them to convince me to abandon the divorce. As I was about to leave my downtown Tampa office, I received a call from my attorney informing me that Rebecca's attorney wanted to schedule a meeting as soon as possible. Why not? Let's resolve this quickly. I have plans for the future. She would call back with a date and time, but until then, I had to be very careful around Rebecca, minimize contact with her, and avoid doing anything that could be perceived as threatening or hostile. When I got home to our West Chase house, I saw Rebecca's car in the driveway. I walked into the house, and the kids were there with their mother. She was pretending to be interested in their homework. They looked at me with expressions that said, "What is she doing?" I didn't speak to Rebecca. I chatted with Sophie and Emma about their day. Emma had soccer practice after school, and Sophie was working on a presentation about Florida wildlife for her science class. Then I prepared dinner for the four of us. Rebecca set the table with plates, utensils, and glasses. Dinner was interrupted only by the girls talking about their day and telling me about the rest of the week's plans. Everything seemed normal except that Rebecca was actively participating. She wasn't busy with work as usual, probably because she'd spent the afternoon with her boyfriend. After the kids went to bed, I went to our home office to work on some freelance programming projects and send emails to clients. Rebecca appeared in the doorway. "Michael, can we talk? It's a little late for that, isn't it? I don't want a divorce. I want us to be a family like we should be. It's a little late for that, isn't it? How can I show you that you're the one I love? It's a little late, isn't it? Why won't you talk to me, Michael? Don't you understand? I've tried to talk to you so many times over the last 18 months, and all you've done is ignore me and ignore our children. Well, now I'm ready to ignore you. I want us to go to marriage counseling. So you can do what? Waste time and money, and then proceed with divorce anyway? I don't think so. You can go to all the therapists and counselors you want, just not with me." Her voice became pleading. "Michael, we can't get divorced. The kids would be hurt." I interrupted her. "Oh, that's rich. The kids will be hurt, and you didn't consider that the kids would be affected by all the time you spent with Brandon? Your selfishness is showing loud and clear, Rebecca." I nearly shouted, "What? For heaven's sake, go see that therapist. The sooner, the better. Better yet, I suggest you pack a large bag and go stay with your precious Brandon. Get away from me." I squeezed past Rebecca and headed for the bedroom I'd been using for months, deciding a hot shower was what I needed. I went into the bathroom. As I stood under the hot water trying to organize my thoughts, I saw the door open with Rebecca standing there. She started to push the shower door open, but I stopped her. "What the hell are you doing? Please, Michael, let me in. We're family. I need you. You need me." I held up my hand. "Stop it. You took me and the kids for granted for a long time, and now that you're facing consequences, you're trying to manipulate your way out of the results of sleeping with your boyfriend. Forget it. Get out." Rebecca stared at me for a few seconds, then turned and left. After finishing my shower, I got dressed and checked on the kids. Rebecca's car was gone. An hour later, I received a text from an unknown number, but I figured it was Brandon. The doorbell rang at my downtown Tampa condo near the Riverwalk. Who the hell could that be? I thought. This was a very inconvenient time. My phone buzzed with a text message. I picked it up and saw that Rebecca had sent me 3 messages in the past hour. "Brandon, baby, who's at the door?" It was Marie, a woman I'd been seeing casually. "I'll tell them it's not a good time. You stay here, and I'll handle this." I got out of bed, put on some clothes, grabbed my phone, and went to the kitchen. I wasn't supposed to see Rebecca until Thursday. What did she need? I answered the phone. Hello? It's me, honey. What's going on? Open the door. I hesitated, trying to figure out what to do. I'd been casually dating Marie for a few months. She was a yoga instructor who worked at a studio in South Tampa. She was great company and didn't ask for commitment. Rebecca's unexpected arrival was a complication I absolutely didn't need right now. I knew her marriage was falling apart, and I realized it was time to end things with her, but I hadn't planned to do it at this moment. Now's not a good time. I'll call you tomorrow. Brandon, I just need to come in and talk to you. In the background, I heard other people entering the building. Then Rebecca said, "Oh, thank you," and the line went dead. Damn, someone had let her into the building. 3 minutes later, there was a knock on my door. "Brandon, it's me. Please let me in." At that moment, Marie came out of the bedroom wearing one of my t-shirts and looking curious. What's going on? I had to think quickly. It's someone I used to date. I don't know what she's doing here. Maybe she had a breakup and wants to talk. Are you going to open the door? Slowly, I walked to the door, looked through the peephole, then unlocked it. Marie was standing in the kitchen with a glass of water when I opened the door. Rebecca walked into the room carrying an overnight bag. She saw Marie and stopped. Marie saw her and stopped too. Without saying anything, Marie set down the glass and headed for the bedroom. 10 seconds later, she was dressed and putting on her coat. As she hurried out the door, she said, "Don't bother calling me." Well, that ended quickly. Rebecca watched Marie leave, then looked at me and asked, "Who was she?" I shook my head. "What do you want, Rebecca?" She set her bag on the couch and looked around the room. On the table were dishes from my dinner with Marie, and then it hit her. She understood the situation. I went to the bedroom, put on jeans and a shirt, returned to the kitchen, and got a beer from the refrigerator. Rebecca sat down on the couch. "Why are you here tonight? We weren't supposed to meet until Thursday." And then I realized, damn, your husband kicked you out, didn't he? She nodded slowly. I continued with resignation. "And you thought you could stay here? What the hell did you do, Rebecca?" She swallowed. "Can I get a drink?" I went to the kitchen and brought her a glass of wine that I knew she liked. I handed it to her and she took a large sip. "He's divorcing me." "Oh, he is?" "He told me he didn't want me to be his wife anymore." "How can you blame him? You and I have been sleeping together for 18 months. I'm surprised he tolerated all this for so long. What happened to your plan to get him back into bed?" "He said he didn't want to come near me. He said he didn't want sloppy seconds." "Well," I exhaled, "you're totally screwed, and in more ways than one. I can be pretty direct when I want to be. So what are you doing here? Why did you come here?" Marie wasn't impressed, by the way. "I think it's all been decided. Rebecca spent the night with me. Marie was gone, so why not spend time with Rebecca? She was always up for a good time. But I knew this couldn't continue. I had my own life to think about. When I woke up the next morning, I noticed Rebecca wasn't in the house. That was actually wonderful. It wouldn't be long before she'd be working full-time if I got what I was requesting in the divorce. After I took the girls to school, Emma to Coleman Middle School for her 7th grade year, Sophie to elementary school for her 5th grade year, and arrived at my software development job downtown, I received an email from my attorney. She had received a request from Rebecca's attorney for a meeting later that week to discuss all divorce-related matters. The case was progressing in the right direction. I needed to arrange after-school care for the kids. I already had a neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, who worked with them 3 afternoons a week, helping with snacks and homework supervision. I needed to discuss with my company the possibility of working from home more often. Fortunately, software development offered significant flexibility, and my manager was understanding about family situations. 2 days later, Rebecca still hadn't returned home, but I noticed more items had disappeared from her bathroom and closet. I assumed she was staying with her boyfriend, but honestly, I didn't care. The girls didn't even ask where she was anymore. Emma was focused on her middle school soccer team, and Sophie was excited about her upcoming 5th grade graduation. I was somewhat surprised that Rebecca didn't even call to talk to them, but she didn't. I called her parents in Clearwater. They had no idea anything was wrong in our marriage. When I asked if she was staying with them, they naturally wondered why she would be staying there. I deflected and told them Rebecca was very busy with work right now, and I was sure she would explain everything to them soon. I had to end the call before they could ask more questions. I wanted Rebecca to be the one to tell her family what was happening, not me. The next evening, Rebecca was still absent, but her mother, Patricia, showed up at the front door. After greeting her granddaughters, she sat down at the kitchen table and said directly to me, "What the hell is going on?" I spent almost 2 hours talking to her. There was no point in holding back. It would all come out eventually anyway. I told her the complete story of the past 18 months of our marriage. She understandably had many questions. At the end, she just looked down at the floor and apologized to me for Rebecca's behavior. I didn't need an apology from her or Robert. I needed an apology from Rebecca for being a dishonest wife and an inadequate parent. 3 days passed, and Rebecca was still gone. It was time to visit Brandon again. You remember, I know where he works and lives. This time I used the same approach. I waited by his car when he left his real estate office near Hyde Park. When he saw me leaning against his BMW, he stopped and tensed up. I waved at him. "Come on. I'm not here to hurt you. I assume Rebecca is staying with you." He exhaled deeply. "Yes, she is. Are you here to take her home?" "No, forget that. I want to know where she is and that she's safe." He looked at the ground, then said, "I was hoping you'd take her home. I don't want her living with me permanently." That was unexpected and somewhat cold. "What? I thought you two were lovers, soulmates, and all that." "Look, we had fun for quite a while. At first, I thought from what she said that you and she were doing well, and she was just having some fun on the side with another guy. But when I found out you weren't okay with the arrangement, I told her to go home and be nice to you if she wanted to stay married and keep the family together. I thought that's what she did, but now I know she didn't." "Well, she's all yours now, buddy. But I don't want her." "Why not? You've enjoyed being with her all this time." "But I don't want her all the time." Brandon's frustration level was rapidly increasing. He shouted, "I don't want her. Get her out of my apartment. Take your wife home." I smiled at him. "No, she's all yours." I stood up and started to walk away. "Please." His tone was desperate. "Please take her. I don't need a full-time woman with 2 kids." I looked at him. He was clearly distressed. "You should have thought about this 18 months ago." I walked to my car and got in. I started the engine and headed toward the parking lot exit. I stopped, backed up, rolled down my window and told him, "Tell her to come home. Her kids are wondering where she is, and her mother wants to talk to her." I raised the window and drove away, leaving him standing there. The day after talking to Brandon, I was working from home when I heard the key in the door. Sure enough, it was Rebecca. I waited until she closed the door and entered the kitchen. "Back for more of your belongings?" She was startled. "Michael, I didn't know you'd be here. I haven't seen your car. It's in the garage for repairs. The shuttle service dropped me off. I'm working from home today." Rebecca didn't say anything else, just stood there. I asked, "What are you here for?" I thought I might come home if that's okay with you." "Well, I suppose Sophie and Emma are wondering where you disappeared to. I figured you were with your boyfriend." I added, "Your mom came to see you. She has some things to tell you and probably many questions." She looked up. "My mother? What did she want?" "She was curious about why you left us." "What did you tell her?" "The truth. My attorney and I were scheduled to meet with Rebecca and her attorney. My lawyer told me to let her handle the talking. She needs to justify her substantial hourly rate somehow." We were meeting in the conference room of my attorney's office near downtown Tampa. It was supposed to be straightforward. We would discuss custody details, asset division, and support amounts. Simple and clean. Well, it wasn't. When I arrived, I saw that Rebecca and her attorney, a woman introduced as Victoria Sterling, were already seated at the table. My experienced legal counsel reminded me of the plan. Let her do the talking, and then we'd proceed with negotiations. As my attorney began discussing the settlement details, she was interrupted by Victoria. We can postpone the main issues for a moment. Rebecca has something to say that might make all this unnecessary, and we can all move on. Rebecca. Michael, I don't want a divorce. What would it take to make you forget all this and return to being the good family we were and can be again? You know I love you and the girls very much. You know I only love you. I wanted to stand up and start yelling, but my lawyer squeezed my hand firmly and pulled me back into the chair. I said, "Let her speak." She continued her speech. "You know that my time with him was just entertainment. It was never anything more than a way for me to relieve the stress of daily life. Our marriage couldn't fulfill all of my needs at that time. It wasn't your fault, you didn't, and you couldn't do anything about it. It was just available to me, and I decided to spend an hour or two a week with him. I came home a better wife and mother. I came home to you and the girls every time." She said it all like it was a positive thing, that sleeping with another man to be a better wife and mother was beneficial. Yes, this woman was still delusional. She had convinced herself that sleeping with Brandon was perfectly acceptable, despite being married to me, and that I would tolerate it indefinitely. And that's why we're here now, to resolve this, to make things right, to move forward. Stop being ridiculous. If she thinks I'm going to blindly accept that she's sleeping with another guy, she really needs a reality check. Rebecca looked at me with an expression that said, "Please." I looked back at her with a seriously expression. My lawyer cleared her throat and decided it was time to earn her fee. "Everyone, I think we need to start addressing the main issues of this divorce." Victoria looked at her client and nodded. The negotiations began. I stopped listening to the back and forth between the attorneys. I was prepared to take this to court if Rebecca fought me and refused my terms. I wanted custody of the kids and the house. That was it. Nothing else mattered. Rebecca could have all the bank accounts and her car, hell, even my car. I didn't care. Everything else was irrelevant. If she wanted to abandon her family, let her live with the consequences. So the lawyers increased their billable hours by exchanging proposals, which often happens in divorce cases. It was all expensive theater. Eventually, the attorneys convinced Rebecca to sign the agreement. It seems that when my legal counsel provided Rebecca's attorney Victoria with all the documentation about how little time Rebecca had actually spent with her family over the past 18 months, especially the past year, it was enough to convince Victoria that if we took this to a family court judge, nothing good would result for Rebecca. In the end, she reluctantly agreed to my divorce terms. Now I just had to ensure it didn't affect my daughters more than necessary. Initially, I refused to sign the divorce agreement Michael wanted. I wanted my family, and I wasn't going to settle for less. Why did he have to be so stubborn? Why did he want to destroy our family? What I did when I was away from him and the kids had no effect on them. Michael didn't lose anything when I was with Brandon. Why couldn't he let me have some time for myself? Why couldn't he? Victoria told me that if Michael forced us to go to court, she was confident the judge would rule in his favor and award custody of the girls to him. I couldn't even comprehend what that meant. I couldn't imagine Michael wanting to take the girls away from me. Why would he do that? Victoria told me she had tried her best to negotiate a better deal for me, but this was about as good as it would get. Prolonging the process would accomplish nothing, and even if I tried to drag it out, the court would order a settlement within a year. So if I wanted to emerge from the marriage with something, it needed to be decided now, not later. I sat and cried for what seemed like hours in Victoria's office overlooking Kennedy Boulevard. I couldn't even concentrate on the paperwork while Victoria pointed out all the places I needed to sign. I was signing away my marriage. I was giving up my children, my family, and the home I loved so much. I was signing away my life. I was somewhat surprised when my attorney called to say the signed documents were being delivered to her office by courier that afternoon. Rebecca's attorney Victoria called my attorney to confirm that Rebecca had agreed to the divorce. I agreed that Rebecca would have very limited visitation time with the children, but they would live with me in our home. Rebecca had until the divorce was finalized to move out. I agreed to an equal division of our financial assets, and she would receive half the house's value no later than 6 months after our youngest child's 18th birthday. She would contribute to the girls' education $100 per month for each of them, totaling $2,400 per year. We had already established education funds for the girls, and I was contributing $500 monthly to each. I opened these accounts when they were born because I wanted to ensure they could afford any college or university they chose. Rebecca kept her car and could take any furniture she wanted to furnish wherever she was going to live. I didn't care about any of that. I even offered to pay for bunk beds the girls would use in Rebecca's new home. Ultimately, I wanted her out of our lives so the girls and I could have less stress. The uncertainty of having an unreliable wife and the girls having an absent mother was slowly destroying me. At least now I knew where I stood and could manage our lives rationally and systematically. Rebecca could move on with her life and do whatever she wanted. She could spend time with the girls and maybe even pay attention to them and their needs. If the girls said they didn't want to be with Rebecca, I wouldn't force them. I would involve my lawyer again and negotiate a new arrangement. We'll see. 60 days later, we're now in March 2016. I received a call from Victoria informing me that she had received the divorce papers from the Hillsborough County Court. I am now officially no longer married to Michael. Felt surreal. Things were changing too rapidly, and I wanted everything to stay the same. What was really strange was that I needed to leave the house. I haven't even looked for a place to live. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. I haven't told any of my family that Michael and I are divorced. Brandon told me he couldn't let me stay with him permanently. Damn. And I was counting on him so much. I need to talk to Michael. Maybe he can help me. I went to the home office where he was working. Michael, honey, can we talk? What would you like to discuss? Where am I supposed to go? I don't have anywhere to go. Do I have to leave? Can't I just stay here a little while longer? Michael looked at me like I had lost my mind. Rebecca, you've had weeks to find a place to live. Where's your boyfriend? Go be with him. At those words, I swallowed hard. He can't have me stay with him. Why not? You like sleeping with him. He didn't wait for my answer. He just shook his head and walked away. I could hear the coffee maker in the kitchen. Michael had a stack of boxes in the living room. Things he had already packed for me so I could take them wherever I was going. I had no idea what to do. Michael's perspective. It was clear that Rebecca was ignoring the fact that our divorce was finalized. She was avoiding finding a place to move. She was ignoring everything her lawyer had told her, things like finding a new residence, things like starting to contribute money to the kids' education accounts monthly, things like getting her belongings out of the house. I had to call my attorney and have her contact Rebecca's lawyer to remind her that she had until midnight to pack her things and leave. I actually knew she wasn't going to do that. I went to the master bedroom she had been occupying and started clearing it out. I disassembled the bed and everything else I could. Small items, lamps and nightstands, I moved to the hallway, planning to move them to the garage. Rebecca, do you need all this furniture? If you do, fine, but if not, I'm selling it. Either way, it's leaving this house. She looked at me in amazement. I kept working, moving the bed frame, headboard, footboard, mattress, and box springs downstairs to the garage. She was sitting in a chair in the living room, and I could see she was crying. Come on, get up and do something. If you need all this, get moving and do something for yourself. Otherwise, it's all gone. After what seemed like hours, I saw her pull out her cell phone and start making calls. I have no idea who she was calling. She made 3 calls, then put the phone in her purse, and I heard my phone ring. The consequences I mentioned earlier were starting to unfold. It was her father calling. "Michael, what the hell is going on? Rebecca told me you're making her move out of the house." "What the hell?" I interrupted him. "Robert, did Rebecca tell you why?" "Jesus, who cares why? Why are you trying to get her to leave the house?" "It's a very long story, Robert. I'd love to tell you everything. Why don't you and Patricia come over to our Westchase house? It will take some time to explain everything you want to know. You'll both want to hear it." He said they would be there in an hour. I put the phone away and found Rebecca. "So are you going to tell your mother and father the truth about what you've been doing for the past 18 months? Or am I going to do it?" She raised her head, and I could see genuine fear in her eyes. It became clear that she hadn't even told them we were getting divorced. It would shock them. This was going to be quite a scene. As I headed to the home office to gather my documents, I heard the door slam and Rebecca's car drive away. I figured she had gone to Brandon's apartment. Robert and Patricia arrived an hour later, and I spent considerable time telling them everything I knew about Rebecca's affair with Brandon. I showed them the divorce papers and the final agreement. They both had a couple of drinks to help process the news of their daughter's marriage ending. To say they were disappointed would be an understatement. To say they wanted to strangle her was probably more accurate. They looked at the stack of boxes in the living room and asked what I was going to do. I replied that my goal was simple: care for the kids, reorganize the house, and adjust my work schedule. I had nothing else planned. Patricia wanted to know if there was any way to forgive Rebecca and save our marriage. I told her I had already tried several times over the past 18 months, and each time I asked Rebecca to end her affair, she refused. I explained that Rebecca was an adult. She didn't belong to me, so I couldn't tell her what to do or demand that she stop. It was very clear that her refusal indicated what was important to her. Her family came second. Her sexual relationship with her boyfriend came first. I asked if they would be willing to take her in. They both looked at me and shook their heads. Robert said solemnly, "She got herself into this. She'll have to get herself out of it." They wished me well and told me that if I needed help with the kids, I could count on them. I thanked them, and they went home to their retirement community in Clearwater that I called Brandon. When he answered, I said, "Put her on the phone." A short pause followed, and then I heard, "Hello. Your mother and father just left here. You'd better not call them for a day or so because they're really upset with you right now." I waited a few seconds until she didn't say anything, then continued, "What are you going to do with your belongings? I'm moving all your stuff to the garage. If you don't collect them by next week, I'll donate everything to Goodwill. Your choice." Then I hung up. If this woman doesn't want to accept that we're divorced, she needs to see a therapist and get a reality check. I know her strategy. Ignore everything she doesn't want to deal with, and eventually everyone else will give in and her life will continue as before. A week later, I called a moving company. They came and packed up all the things I thought Rebecca needed. I put them in temporary storage, hoping she would eventually come to her senses and tell me where to send them. Rebecca stayed with Brandon, who called me every day asking if she could come home. I replied each time, "She doesn't live here anymore." The first time I said that, he hung up. Brandon showed up outside my office building in downtown Tampa, wanting to talk. He was insistent that he wanted me to do something about Rebecca. She was staying in his apartment and didn't want to leave. She hadn't gone to work at the marketing firm or even gotten out of bed in days. "You have to come and talk to her," he pleaded. "That's not my problem anymore, pal. You wanted her before. Now she's yours. Deal with her yourself." I got in my car and drove away. I called Rebecca's parents and told them I had spoken with her boyfriend, and I thought they should visit her and discuss getting her some professional help. She had fallen into a deep depression and wasn't doing anything to get out of it. I left it at that and went home to my daughters. I needed to make dinner. "Come on, girls, get your stuff together. We need to go." The past year has been challenging. Adjusting to a new schedule, reorganizing the house, and then selling it. Our new place in Westchase is different and has a pool in the backyard. We also have a large driveway that can accommodate multiple cars, the truck, and the trailer. You probably noticed I said cars plural. So what's the story? Why do I have more than one vehicle? Well, the answer is simple. You'll recall that I met Amanda after my divorce. We started spending much more time together. We enjoy the same activities, get along wonderfully, and I asked her and her daughter Lily if they'd like to move in with us. She thought about it for about a week, then said yes, she and Lily would love to. We discussed it, and I told her I didn't want to make a lifetime commitment just yet, but I thought it made sense for us to live together and share expenses. She agreed, sold her Tampa apartment, and the two of them moved in with us. Everything has worked out perfectly so far. Amanda and I have 3 girls, 1 house, and 1 shared bedroom. We have a wonderful relationship. Lily, now 6, treats me like her father she loves when I read her bedtime stories. Emma and Sophie treat her like their little sister. They play together and often read to her at bedtime. We do extensive traveling in the RV throughout Florida and neighboring states. I'm constantly researching new destinations and activities for when we arrive. It's worked out great so far. I'm not going to complicate things by proposing marriage just yet. The saddest aspect of this entire situation is that Rebecca only sees her daughters sporadically, maybe 1 day a month. She moved into a small apartment near West Shore and her marketing firm, and aside from occasional texts asking to spend a day with the girls, that's about it. The girls spend a few hours with her and then come home. I try to talk with them and ensure they understand that their mother's absence isn't their fault. I may need to seek professional counseling for them. We'll see if it becomes necessary. Lily provides great companionship for Emma and Sophie. The 3 of them have tremendous fun together. Emma is now 13 and in 8th grade at Coleman Middle School. She's still playing soccer and has shown real talent for it. Sophie is 11 and in 6th grade, excited about starting middle school next year. They've both adjusted well to having Amanda and Lily as part of our family. Michael and I and the 3 girls are now a family. He is so easy and enjoyable to be with. I look forward to every day I spend with him. The kids all get along wonderfully, so it just works. We are a family. We all love taking RV trips and visiting state parks throughout Florida and beyond. The girls love hiking, biking, and running around campgrounds. It's wonderful to see them free to play, get dirty, and enjoy activities without being overly structured. When we're camping, we don't need to be helicopter parents. Most importantly, I genuinely enjoy spending time with Michael, just the 2 of us together. I can't believe Rebecca gave up on him by neglecting him. Her ego was so enormous that she forgot he needed her attention. It wasn't just about her, but in her mind, everything was about her. She wanted to have everything security and excitement simultaneously. So selfish, so self-centered. She cheated herself out of her husband, her children, and her home. I hope she found what she was looking for. I certainly did. The transition from my role as a staff nurse to becoming the pediatric nursing supervisor at Tampa General Hospital has been incredibly rewarding. Managing a team of 25 nurses while maintaining patient care standards keeps me challenged professionally. Michael has been incredibly supportive of my career advancement, often adjusting his software development schedule to handle school pickups when I have late meetings or emergency situations at the hospital. We complement each other well. His flexible work-from-home schedule as a senior software engineer meshes perfectly with my more structured hospital shifts. He's even started taking on some consulting projects for healthcare software systems, combining our professional knowledge in ways that benefit both our careers. The healthcare software consulting has been particularly interesting. Michael's experience with database management and user interface design, combined with my practical knowledge of hospital workflows, has made us a great team for several projects. We've worked together on upgrading the patient management system at a pediatric clinic in South Tampa, and it's been amazing to see how technology can improve patient care. I was running errands in Westchase over the weekend when I saw Michael and Amanda with all 3 girls at the town center. They were laughing and clearly enjoying themselves. The kids were eating ice cream as they walked through the outdoor shopping area. Michael and Amanda were holding hands. I was supposed to be the one holding Michael's hand. Why does everything have to be so complicated? I don't have an answer to that question. I probably made terrible decisions and didn't realize that Michael wouldn't tolerate what I was doing. Brandon eventually asked me to leave his condo, and we don't see each other anymore. I miss him. I miss the kids, and I miss Michael. I miss his touch and his smile and lying next to him at night. I miss our home. I miss my life. The one-bedroom apartment I'm renting now is in a complex near West Shore, close to the marketing firm where I work. It's practical but nothing like the house we shared. The walls are thin, and I can hear neighbors arguing or watching television late into the night. There's no backyard where children can play, no camping trailer in the driveway, no family dinners around the kitchen table. My work as a marketing manager keeps me busy, but it's not the same as coming home to a family. My colleagues are friendly enough, but they have their own lives, their own families. I find myself staying late at the office more often than necessary, just to avoid the silence of my apartment. Weekends are the worst. That's when I see other families at Publix at Bayshore Boulevard, living the life I used to have. Sometimes I drive past their new house in Westchase and see the girls playing in the backyard with Amanda's daughter. They look happy. They look like a real family. I've tried dating through apps like Bumble and Hinge, but it never progresses anywhere. How do you explain to someone that you destroyed your marriage because you thought you could have everything? That you were so selfish you couldn't see what you were throwing away until it was gone? My parents barely speak to me anymore. When they do, it's polite but distant. They love their granddaughters, but they can't understand what I did. You had everything, my mother said the last time we talked at Christmas. A good man, beautiful children, a lovely home. Why wasn't that enough? I didn't have an answer then, and I don't have one now. The court-ordered visitation happens about once a month, when I'm fortunate. Sometimes Emma and Sophie say they have other planned sleepovers at friends' houses, birthday parties, camping trips to places like Ginny Springs or the Keys with Michael and Amanda. I can't compete with that, and I know I have no right to try. When they do visit my apartment, we sit awkwardly on my small couch, struggling to find conversation topics. They tell me about school, their friends, the places they've been camping. They're polite, but I can see they'd rather be elsewhere. Do you have a boyfriend now? Sophie asked once, innocent and curious. No, I don't have a boyfriend anymore, I told her. Oh, are you lonely? The question hit me like a physical blow. Sometimes, I admitted. Maybe you could get a cat, Emma suggested helpfully. Cats are good company. A cat. My daughter thinks I should get a cat because I'm too pathetic to maintain human relationships. I've been in therapy for a year now. Dr. Martinez at the counseling center near downtown Tampa has helped me understand the patterns of selfishness and entitlement that led to my choices. I've learned about attachment styles, emotional regulation, and the psychology of infidelity. It's been painful but necessary work. Sometimes, late at night in my quiet apartment, I think about what Brandon said to me. For a smart woman, you're incredibly clueless sometimes. He was absolutely right. I was intelligent enough to succeed in my marketing career, to manage household finances, to help with homework. But I was too stupid to realize that actions have consequences, that you can't build happiness on someone else's pain. I had convinced myself that what Michael didn't know wouldn't hurt him. I told myself that my time with Brandon made me a better wife and mother because it fulfilled some need that Michael couldn't meet. What complete nonsense that was. The truth is, I was selfish and entitled and thought I could have everything without paying any price. Now I know better. Now I know that some mistakes can't be fixed, some trust can't be rebuilt, some bridges can't be unburned. I see Michael's happiness with Amanda, and part of me, the part that still loves him, is glad he found someone who appreciates what I was too blind to see. Amanda treats him the way I should have. She prioritizes their family. She doesn't take him for granted. The other part of me, the selfish part that apparently never learned its lesson, is jealous. I want to be the one holding his hand, the one making him laugh, the one he comes home to every night. I want to be the one the girls run to with their problems and celebrations. But I'm not. I'm the cautionary tale, the example of what happens when you don't appreciate what you have until it's gone. I've thought about moving away from Tampa, starting fresh somewhere else where no one knows my story. But I can't bear the thought of being even farther from Emma and Sophie. As limited and awkward as our monthly visits are, they're all I have left of the life I destroyed. So I stay in my small apartment near West Shore, working my marketing job, living my diminished life. I've learned to be alone, though I've never learned to like it. I've learned that some second chances never come. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd made different choices 2 years ago. If I'd said no to Brandon that first time, if I'd focused on fixing whatever was wrong in my marriage instead of looking for escape in someone else's arms. If I'd appreciated what I had instead of thinking I deserved more. But wondering doesn't change anything. The past is written, and I wrote it with my own selfish choices. All I can do now is live with the consequences and hope that someday, maybe, my daughters will understand that their mother loved them, even if she didn't love them enough to make better choices when it mattered. Thank you for your viewing. See you next time. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to JK Tells a Story for more tales.